Welcome to Ask Christina First, straight talk for entrepreneurs and sole proprietors on what makes small business work. You're listening to this program on the amazing Women of Power Radio Network, world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International and sponsored by Ground Level Small Business Management Consulting. If you're overwhelmed by the challenges of managing your small business and you're ready to turn that around, call 310-463-5942 for a free introductory 20-minute consultation. That's 310-463-5942. They're waiting to take your call. We've been talking this month specifically about employees or team management, and today I wanted to continue with that same train of thought by talking about the good-hearted business owner and team management. Now, all of us, and I keep reporting this, that all of you, my listeners, are good-hearted business owners. I suspect that you wouldn't be choosing to listen to me and my show if that wasn't your way of being. If you're somebody who believes in making a difference on the face of this planet, you believe in being kind to your employees, or you believe that being able to run a small business is good for you and for other people as well, you believe in a win-win solution, you're a good-hearted small business owner. And I don't question that I suspect everybody who's listening to this show is exactly one of those. So, if you feel like this is you, then this show is for you to listen to. So today I'm going to specifically talk about team management. What does it mean for you as a leader in your company? Because this show is about entrepreneurs and sole proprietors. What does it mean for you as a leader in your company about how you treat your independent contractors or your team members or your employees? What does that mean? And what it means is that we're often, I have found, let me start there. I have found particular areas where the good-hearted business owner actually doesn't excel. You generally excel, right? If you're one of those people, which I suspect you are, you generally excel in the area of wanting to take care of your team. You generally excel in the area of wanting to be good and kind to the people that work for you. You generally excel in wanting to make them feel welcomed and valued in your company. Generally, those are all areas that you take for granted as being necessary. Now, the question isn't just that you have those desires, but the question is whether or not those desires really translate. That's one question. The other question I would suggest is, are you being overly good-hearted or overly friendly? So let me describe to you about how it may not translate. Your desire to be a good-hearted business owner might be being thwarted by the fact that you find yourself to be overwhelmed. It might be being thwarted by the fact that you find yourself wanting your employees to do what you ask them to do, and when they don't, you get frustrated and angry about it. Or you might be one of those employees where you want to be so rewarding to them or so understanding to them that you give them a lot of control over their own schedule. Now, the being understanding until you're overwhelmed, or the being understanding until you feel like they're not doing your job, is very common. If you're one of those, if you can track inside of you the times that you have been frustrated with your employees because they just aren't doing their job and you need them to perform better, or you've passed on your frustrations to your employees by talking to them quickly or angrily, or talking to them from a space of overwhelming and asking them to save you from that space of overwhelm, you're in really good company. I think we all have done that. Because we have a tendency to believe that those people are either going to be the same as us, therefore they will be as good at getting their job done as we are, or we believe that we should be honest and upfront with them, and therefore we'll share our overwhelm with them. And I'm going to suggest that neither one of those really work. I'm going to suggest that sharing your impatience or even having the expectation that they're the same as you isn't going to lead you or lead them to having a satisfying relationship. I'm going to suggest that you being overwhelmed and then wanting to be honest to your team member or your employee about your senses of overwhelm, that honesty may not actually serve you or serve them. That really it's for you to keep with yourself that you're feeling so overwhelmed. They rely on you and count on you to be their boss. They rely on you and count on you to give them their paycheck. If you're overwhelmed, or if you're stating that you're scared on the fronts of pay or on the fronts of time or on the fronts of stability in the business, they might feel fear and concern that their paycheck, which pays their rent, will be disappearing. So I actually suggest that it's actually more good-hearted, it's actually kinder to be able to keep your sense of balance around your honesty with your employees. I talked before about being their friend versus being friendly, and this is part of that. Part of it is being friendly. You're thoughtful about them. You're considerate to them. You're friendly when you talk to them. But really they're not your friend, in that they're not reliant up, in that they're not there for you to rely upon them to share that information with them. Remember, their paycheck really is attached to you as the small business owner, or is attached to you as to the level of the business and how well the business is doing. Their instinct is going to be attached to that. And the question is, can you protect them? Can you lay out for them that their job is not at risk? And the way you can do that is by being authentic. Yes, I'm stressed. Yes, I'm overwhelmed. Yes, there are things going on, so that they know that you're being authentic with them, but to not pass it along to them in a state of overwhelm. I need you to take care of this because I just can't take care of it because there's so many things going wrong in the company. You see, as soon as you say there's so many things going wrong in the company, you're going to create concern on their side. And I'm going to encourage you to not do that. Part of how you can do this is not only just by being friends, distinguishing between friends and friendly, but also being clear what the job description is. What is it that you hired them for? If you're coming from a state of overwhelm or from a state of anxiety, sometimes you'll treat people with the assumption that they'll take care of it for you because Lord knows it needs to happen in relationship to the business. In order to keep the business going, this is something that needs to occur. So it's natural for you to want to translate it to them, to give it to them as something for them to solve because Lord knows your plate is full, isn't it? Isn't your plate full? My plate's full. Your plate's full. It's natural for you to want to pass that along to your employee. But if it's not in their job description, then I would suggest that you're actually creating confusion and maybe frustration on the part of your employee. But definitely confusion in, well, what am I really here for? You give them a very set job and you pay them for those hours and you've agreed upon that pay from the beginning. If you start shifting their job description, you might need to shift their pay with it. And if you shift their job description on an ongoing basis, like you do it this week but not next week, but you do it again next week, and you add no more things the week after, pretty quickly that job grows outside of the paycheck that you've promised them. So if you're going to add something to somebody's plate, to a team member's plate, I suggest you add it in such a way that it's an ongoing addition. Like, I really do want them to take over the social media. That really is going to add 3 hours a week to their time. I really do need to pay them for that 3 hours a week because you've already defined a clear job description and a clear amount of hours and a clear amount of pay that they've already agreed to. And I would suggest you need to remember that it's up to them whether or not they're really willing to take on a new piece of the job or not. Now, most likely they'll agree because they want to keep the job they have. But I suggest you actually ask them, are they willing to take on the social media? Here's the amount of hours I think it's going to take, and I'm going to pay you more for it. Or I'm going to take 3 hours off of your plate from something else and put these 3 hours on, and you're going to keep it that way. You, the leader, are going to keep it that way for a minimum of the next what? 10 weeks? 10 months? But definitely an extended period of time that is very distinct and concrete. In that way, you don't pass along your overwhelm and your anxiety and even your internal senses of inconsistency. Keeping track of the friend versus friendly boundary and keeping track of the job description, and are you asking them to shift that or not? So I already know that you guys have selected in and that information is for you. Let's talk about another step around being the good-hearted business owner and team management. I'm going to talk about time management. Now, time management, I think, is a misnomer. You're not really managing your time. You're actually managing your tasks and the tasks that you get done in your time. But time management is what it's called, so that's what I'm going to use. In your time management system is some cornerstones, some keys, some secrets to how you manage your employees. What am I talking about? What I'm talking about is in your time management system is where you keep and log the projects that you have delivered to your team members and the timeline that you've delivered it to them, like when are they supposed to return it to you, and being available to your team members to help them be successful in getting that done. What does that look like? I'll be very, very concrete, very direct here. You might even want to write this down. When you delegate a project to a team member, I suggest you have a direct conversation with them. The conversation includes what the task is. It includes the vision of how that task will be important to the company, how it contributes to the company. It includes a suggestion about a timeline and any really hard and concrete details or ways that you feel like it needs to be done, but be minimal about those. Because what you want is to really delegate a project so that they feel in charge of the project, that they are allowed to implement their own vision in how to get that project done and can be excited about the vision that you describe about how it contributes to the company. They want to contribute. They want to be valuable. So that's the first part. The second part of delegation is, when is the project due? You suggest a due date. You ask if they can do it or not. I want the project in 3 weeks. Can you do it in 3 weeks? And they'll either agree or they won't. And if they can't do it in 3 weeks, you need to negotiate a successful timeline that they can commit to. Now, I suggest that if you're going to have a timeline, that you always leave time for them to turn it into you early in comparison to when it's due, so that you can at least have 2 revisions, 2 rounds of revisions to get it done. Let's say you have a 4-week timeline. I suggest you tell them it's due in 3 weeks so that you can have them do 2 rounds of revisions during that last week. How does this tie into your time management? When you delegate the project, when you guys have agreed on a timeline, you put that timeline 3 weeks in your calendar. You plan on, and I really mean you actually contact your team member that day to confirm that the project is ready to be delivered. Or if you want to give them a little space and time, then you contact them the morning after when you expect it to be delivered. But you're going to contact them when the project is due. If they haven't already put it on your plate, if they haven't already emailed it to you, you're going to follow up with them so they know and they learn that you're serious about your timelines, that you haven't forgotten, oh, gee, I thought this project was important to the vision of the company. This is what your team member or your employee is thinking. I thought it was important, but they haven't followed up with me, and I'm 5 days late on it. Well, I guess it really isn't that important. Do you see how easy it is for it to slip by? Now, I understand I really do, that you as the small business owner have a lot of things on your plate. And so trying to make sure that you actually follow up with them that exact day or that next morning really takes skill on your part. What it takes is a solid time management system on your part. It shows your employees that you care about the project. It shows your employees that you care about the work that they do, that you get back to them in that time frame. It shows your employees that they are accountable, and it gives them the opportunity to be accountable and be successful. It gives you the opportunity to praise them and support them and acknowledge them in their timely delivery on the project, with or without revisions being necessary. Their timely deliverance on the project. So what do you do with that? You put it in your calendar so you don't miss it. That's the day they promise to bring it back. You put it on that next morning. You look for it in your emails. Did they deliver it to you? Yes, they did. Great. Make sure that you email them back, acknowledgement that you've delivered the project and you're looking forward to reviewing it. You see how important it is. That 24-hour window is an important moment, an important element in developing consistency and accountability with your team members. Their consistency and their accountability starts with you getting back to them. And then you have built in 2 revisions. So you review the project, you get back to them, and you say, here are my revisions. Great project. Thanks so much. Here are a few changes I'm going to ask you to make. Count on it. Do not be disappointed. Do not be frustrated. Do not put yourself where you're against a wall in delivering the project by putting it too close to its due date. Expect that this is what's going to happen. Give them the respect and yourself the respect of the project being 95% done, but another 5% needing a little more attention. It will serve you and serve them if you keep these rules in mind. So remember, there's 2 rounds. Both rounds are the same email. Nice work. Here's a few more tweaks. That'll finish it off. Right? You follow this system. You will have more accountable team members. You'll have greater success with your team members, greater satisfaction from your team members, greater satisfaction for you in your business, more consistency in your capacity to deliver for your clients. Oh, let's see what else. Less frustration on your part as a small business owner and leader. Do you see these few elements just being written in your calendar can lead to a much more satisfying business life for you? You just need to put it in your calendar and actually follow through with it. Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed and anxious? Do you sometimes push that out on your employees unintentionally? I do. I'm a small business owner. I do it sometimes. I try not to. Or for me, I don't know about you guys, but I'll be honest and authentic here. Sometimes I push it out on my husband, and he doesn't deserve it. But do we sometimes do that? Do you sometimes do that? Is that not the way it sometimes goes? The question is, how can we be authentic without being unfair? That's one. The second segment of the show was about time management and team management and how they actually work together. How you can create greater accountability and greater satisfaction for your employees and greater satisfaction and a greater capacity to serve your clients with yourself by having a time management system that supports team management. Now I want to talk about compensation. These are the 3 areas I specifically started the show with. There are 3 areas that I constantly see the good-hearted business owner and team management kind of run into a problem. The compensation is one of those areas. I can't tell you how many times I've had small business owners in my office say, well, I want to compensate my employees well for the hard work they do. I know I never felt like I was compensated well, and I want to be one of those employers that understands that people are living on this paycheck. And I want to compensate them well enough that they can truly feel acknowledged and appreciated for their job and will work very hard because I'm paying them a fair or even above fair wage. Is that you? Is that you? It's many of us. It really is. It's more of us than you would think, at least in my world, the people I run into. It's, maybe there are people out there who are like, I need to pay them the least I can so I can maximize my profits, so I can leverage off of the back of their hard work, and they're not really working as hard as I am, and so therefore, they get a lower wage or whatever that thinking is. I'm not actually that familiar with that thinking. Believe it or not, I should be more familiar with it. But I think we all know that thinking. We all have all heard it, or we've seen it in movies, or we've heard people talk about it. I suspect that you're probably not one of those people. That's not how you see yourself. but I have a challenge for you. And you know me, I often will have a challenge for my listeners. I have a challenge for you. Have you made sure that the compensation you're giving them is truly a fair compensation? And what do I mean by fair? I mean two things. One, is it fair for them, as in, are they being paid within the range of what other people are being paid? Well, what does that mean by that? Go to Monsters, right? Go on monsters.com. I think that's the job search site, or anywhere else that is a job posting site, Craigslist, and see what are people being offered for that particular job that you're offering. What is a fair wage for a receptionist who's going to do light data entry while she's sitting at the desk? What is a fair wage for a social media, not manager, but a social media guy, woman who's implementing a directed social media campaign, who does your Facebook postings? What is a fair wage for those people? And I want you to know what that fair wage is, because I want you to know that there's a range of compensation. There's a point where, let's say the job normally pays $15 to $18. There's a point at $25 where you're not going to get any better quality work out of them than you would at $18 or that you would at $20. There's a point where you can't pay $35 or $40 to somebody who really the job description requires an $18 an hour price point, because they can't really work harder. At some point, what they can do is work smarter, and that's when you start getting into like a social media manager who's paying somebody else $15 an hour in order for them to implement their vision, their plan that they have created for you. But there's a point where you don't actually get greater work for greater pay. Okay, so that's one part. The second part is there's a certain amount of cost that your company can afford. Now let me describe this. I have a client right now that I'm working with who is a consultant, like so many of my clients. Consultants are small business owners generally. You spend 3 hours of support for every 1 hour that you're directly working with a client. That's consultants, people that have to do a lot of their own back office stuff, but spend limited and concentrated times with their clients. So it's 3 hours of work for every 1 hour with a client. That's 4 hours total. So if you're getting paid $200 an hour as a consultant, your actual pay rate is $50 an hour. Okay? So if you're supposed to be paid $200 an hour, you divide 200 by 4, you get 50. So let's say you try to bring in a team member to support you in getting your work done. If you pay them $50 an hour, you're paying them what your piece is. You're paying them 100% of what you're actually making in that time period. So they're not actually leveraging you into any more profits. And if you pay them more than $50 an hour, you're actually giving them profits. You're actually taking money away from the structure of the company to actually give them profits. And that's not that hard. How many of us charge $200 an hour? How many of us charge $90 an hour? Or $100 an hour? If you charge $100 an hour and you have to put 3 hours in for every 1 hour served, that pay rate is $25 an hour. If you're paying that team member $50 an hour to replace your time, you're not making money, you're losing money. Do you see how quickly that can happen? Why am I going into this detail? I'm going into this detail because I'm challenging you that it is your job as the entrepreneur, as the leader, as the one who owns the company. It's your job to have a fiscally sound business. Here's why. One, you're the only one who knows what's fiscally sound because you're the one running the business. You're the only one who sees the whole structure of the business. And two, you promised your employees when they walked in and you set up that job description for them and you started those paychecks, inherent behind that is some version of a promise that you're going to keep paying them. Yeah, that you're going to keep paying them. You've created in that a promise that your doors will stay open 6 months, 8 months, 8 years. These people are counting on a paycheck from you. The way that you keep the doors open is that you make sure you're not paying them too much. The ways you keep the doors open is that you make sure you offer them a fair compensation that gives them good money for the work that they have done. That's why I challenge you. I challenge you to consider that a good-hearted business owner really does offer fair, attractive, but fair compensation for the work that the employee is doing. Fair based upon maybe the market, but most importantly, fair based upon what the company can handle. You don't want to pay your employees so much that you don't bring home as much as they do. And are you that business owner? I'll bet you are. I bet you've done that. Maybe not ongoingly, but maybe you've thought about it, or maybe early in your years as an entrepreneur. But I bet someplace along the line you've given away more than you knew was right. I'll bet that someplace along the line you've given more hours to clients than you knew was fair and right, or you've given more pay to your employees than you knew was fair and right. It's okay. A business can absorb that for so long or for so much. Your job is to know where those lines are. Because you promised, in a way, you've promised to keep the doors open and the paycheck coming. So I'm really wanting you to think about this and maybe even do some calculations around it. Are you paying your employees, not in gross, but each employee individually? Are they being paid more than you are? And are they really worth it? Will they help your company grow to the point where you're being paid more than they are? Or did you do it kind of as a mistake because you're so kind-hearted? I challenge you to think about this.